Political system and political regime are two of the most important things for the state to be able to run. Good day to all of you. If you are interested to talk further about this, here's our presentation about political system and political regime, coming up right now. First of all, we should know what is the definition of political system and political regime according to some sources. According to Britannica, political system is a set of formal legal institutions that constitute a government or a state. While according to study, in political science, political regime is usually defined as a set of rules or norms determining how politics works in a country. Now, the distinction between political system and political regime is the state itself, while the political system is the setup of government in one country. Here's several examples of political system and political regime, their definition, countries, and number of people who hold power.
What is communism? Maybe when we hear this word, the first thing that immediately comes to our mind is about revolution. The ideology of communism is the root of so many historical events around the world. An example of this is the revolution. Some of them cause good things, while the other cause severe problems, and eventually even wars and death of the majority. But what exactly is communism? Where did it started? And who started this system? The word communism comes from the Latin word communis, which means common or equal. This system is believed to be started from the book The Communist Manifesto, written by a German philosopher and economist Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels. In February 21, 1848, read the motto of the workers of the world, Unite. In 1516, there is another famous form of communism. This is Thomas More's book, Utopia. This book describes a strange but fantasy island where no private property exists, and all the wealth is stored in forests, where when someone needs something, they just go there and get what they need for free. According to Karl Marx, communism is a political system that aims to create an equal society where the means of production of factories, such as mines and other large businesses, should not be dominated or controlled. Only the public should be in charge of it. This is also said to be the answer to poverty and unequal treatment of citizens and poor workers. What are the types of communism in the world? The first one is Leninism, which came from Vladimir Lenin. It was promoted through industrialism and collectivism. Next is Stalinism. This came from Joseph Stalin, where the dictatorship played a big role in this system. The next is Maoism. It came from Mao Zedong, who promoted communism based on the farmers and not for the workers. The existence of communist government in China began during the time of the famous Chinese Mao Zedong. Because of his aspiration, this system was supported and proclaimed in the country of China on October 1, 1949. And this was the sign of the existence of People's Republic of China. Do you know that there is an organization that follows the communist system here in our country? It is the CPP, or Communist Party of the Philippines. It was formed under the leadership of Jose Maria Sison, or better known as Joma, on December 26, 1922. But it directly recognized a version of communism in the country of China.
We are the ones trying to save our democracy. Very simple.
A democracy is a form of government which the people have the authority to make laws and elect representatives to carry them out. Democracy, which means people's power, is a form of government based on popular will. The term democracy is derived from Greek words demos, which means people, and kratos, which means power. Human rights are much more than a mere pillar of democracy. They are required for a democratic system to function properly. Human rights can only develop and evolve in a democracy because it is only in this system that the population can write the laws that will govern them and publicly control the three powers: which are the legislative, the executive, and the judiciary powers. One of the most important pillars of democracy is elections. This electoral law texts govern and clearly define both the organization of these elections and how to conduct the vote deduction in order to assign them to the corresponding seats. Elections are the process by which the citizens choose their representatives on a regular basis and replace them as needed. During an election, voters have several options. They can choose who will write their laws. Accountability to the people is a fundamental aspect of democracy. An elected official are required to run for re-election on a regular basis. As a result, the majority of democratic constitutions requires elections to be held at regular intervals. The term separation of powers refers to the division of governmental responsibilities into separate branches so that no one branch performs the primary duties of another. The goal is to promote checks and balances while preventing power concentration. There are three branches of the government: the legislative power, which creates and implements laws; the executive power, which enforces laws and government policies; and the judiciary power, which provides the legal framework for exercising power. In general, the parliamentary regime and the presidential regime are the two types of governments that need to be distinguished. In parliamentary systems, the elected parliament serves as the foundation of the government. A twofold mandate may also be granted to government ministers. On the other hand, a presidential regime or a presidential system is set up differently. The best known example of this is the United States of America. Either at the institutional level or the partial and technical exercise of the power, the legislative and executive branches are divided there. Even though the interactions between the parliament and the government in democracies can vary greatly, parliaments always serve the basic same functions. They have the authority to propose legislation. They are empowered to propose new legislation. In parliamentary systems, this right is frequently granted to the government because it represents the majority in the legislature and increases the likelihood that the bill will be passed in this situation. The parliament is given the authority to control in front of the government. The National Assembly has the potential to destabilize the government. As a result, the parliament's primary characteristics is the role in the expression and the articulation of political will. Individuals or specific group of people who reflect on their society and express their critiques, ideas, or agreements have an impact on the creation of political will. In this situation, public opinion is being used as a tool to influence the nation's political elite. On the one hand, the opposition must be aware of this, since it can only engage the administration through public opinion. Public opinion serves the interests of the whole population in its attempts to express grievances and advocate their particular actions. A citizen has the right to arrange a gathering to share information, for example, and to engage in the expression of public opinion in some way. In a democracy, public opinion is therefore an important governing aspect, implying that only politicians who engage with it can really demonstrate care for the interest of the population.
Fascism, authoritarian, totalitarian, military regime, political dynasty, tyranny, dictatorship, you name it. It derives from the Italian word fascio, means bundle, but a bundle revolves around an axe, meaning the power over life and death, meaning one of the doctrines of fascism is the power itself.
La dichiarazione di guerra è già stata consegnata agli ambasciatori Gran Bretagna e Francia.
The founder of this ideology is one and only Benito Mussolini in 1919. He is one of the most famous philosopher and leader in Italy at that time. In fact, after he originated this ideology, he became a leader in such a short time. During that span of World War, from 1930s to 1940s, this ideology become famous in some of the specific countries, from Italy to Germany to Japan to Argentina to Chile and such. And one of the most famous fascist leaders in the world, Adolf Hitler, leading the Nazis all the way through. Let me give three of the most controversial idea in fascism. What it is, what is the meaning of it, what is the purpose of it. First, it unified a country in a single genetic bond. Meaning, they support a strong nationalism that sometimes become cultural purity. Let me give you an example. If you are a foreigner in a fascist country, you don't want to be a foreigner at that time. Because all the racism, all the judgment, all the treatment will be done to you. Just like what happened to you in Hitler at that time. Second, all the funds, all the money of the government are allocated only in military purposes. And they have a doctrine. They must be independent. They don't accept any help in other countries unless it is a military purposes. That's why we predicted it. The economy of fascism is this. Downwards. In fascism, they reject the idea of fascism by Karl Marx. There is no bourgeoisie, there is no proletariat in this country. But they support the idea of socialism, which states that all the people in this country must stay equal, even you are upper class or lower class. But based on my conspiracy, on my own conspiracy, and based on what happened in history, that's not what happened in reality. Because at that time, the political leader, usually a fascist military leader supported by his military officials, are the upper class in this country. Third, they support a strong violence, murdering, kidnapping, executing, you name it. All the ungodly doings are done in fascism. In a fascist leader, being a fascist leader, there is no conscience on him. And let me give you an suggestion. In order to survive, you must stay tough. Be a soldier. Be a military official. If you can, be a dog. Obey the leader at all costs. Stay loyal to him. Do not be a traitor. And you don't want to be a traitor in a fascist country. Because if you are a traitor in a fascist country, you will be executed again and again.
The words echo out of the history of the land.
We have resolved, by the favor and blessing of Almighty God, to celebrate the solemnity of our royal coronation upon Tuesday, the 2nd day of June, in the year of grace 1953.
The coronation of Her Royal Majesty Queen Elizabeth II.
Monarchy is a form of government in which a person, the monarch, is the head of state for life or until abdication. The political legitimacy and authority of the monarch may vary from restricted and largely symbolic to fully autocratic, wherein the monarch may extend his authority over the domains of the executive, legislative, and judicial. The succession of monarchs in most cases has always been hereditary. The throne is passed to a family member after either the death of the current monarch or its abdication. However, in a federal or elective monarchy, the throne is passed through an election among the leaders of the members of the federation. A constitutional monarchy, parliamentary monarchy, or democratic monarchy is a form of monarchy in which the monarch exercises their authority in accordance with the constitution and is not alone in decision making. Constitutional monarchies differ from absolute monarchies in that they are bound to exercise powers and authorities within limits prescribed by an established legal framework. Constitutional monarchy may refer to a system in which the monarch acts as a non-party political head of state under the constitution, whether codified or uncodified. In addition to acting as a visible symbol of national unity, a constitutional monarch may hold formal powers such as dissolving parliament or giving royal assent to legislation. However, such powers generally may only be exercised strictly in accordance with either written constitutional principles or unwritten constitutional conventions rather than any personal political preferences of the sovereign. An absolute monarchy is a form of government in which a single person, usually a king or queen, holds absolute autocratic power. In absolute monarchies, the succession of power is typically hereditary, with the throne passing among members of a ruling family. In an absolute monarchy, as in a dictatorship, the ruling power and actions of the absolute monarch may not be questioned or limited by any written law, legislature, court, economic sanction, religion, custom, or electoral process. In an absolute monarchy, common people are denied natural rights and enjoy only a few limited privileges granted by the monarch. Practice or abstinence from any religion not endorsed by the monarch is treated as a serious crime. The people have no voice whatsoever in the government or the direction of the country. All laws are issued by the monarchs and typically serve only their best interest. Any complaints or protests against the monarch are considered acts of treason and punishable by torture and death. A federal monarchy in the strict sense is a federation of states with a single monarch as head of the federation, but retaining different monarchs or having a non-monarchical system of government in the various states joined to the federation. Federal monarchy uses an election among the monarchs of the joint states of the federation in selecting the head of the state.
Уважаемые коллеги, друзья, добрый день. То, что происходит, вынуждено.
So, what is oligarchy? When you heard of the term oligarchy, you may think of a type of government that has been ruling for decades in their countries. It is important to know and understand the type and styles of governments and how they operate. While monarchy and democracy is the most popular forms of government, oligarchy has a fascinating history. But what is oligarchy anyway? Oligarchy comes from the Greek word oligarchs, meaning few to rule. It's a government ruled by a small group for corrupt and selfish purposes. The system where family, businesses, and rich individuals rule. This also means many democratic and monarchy countries are controlled by oligarchies. Maybe a democratic country on the surface can be disguised as an oligarchy, where rich and powerful people can control some departments of their government, where they hold some authority. Oligarchies can influence economies to benefit themselves, which can threaten the free market because they can control the policies and the trading of goods because of their authority and privilege. This will lead to an unhealthy economy, which can bout its standards. Plutocracy versus oligarchy. When in oligarchy, a member can be rich or not. It is the opposite of plutocracy, which is an oligarchy full of rich members. Many countries could be considered plutocracies because of this reason. Aristocracy versus oligarchy. Here's the rules. Elites, unlike plutocracy, it is often accompanied by monarchy, where the elites can influence the monarchy, which is a form of oligarchy. Why oligarchies are formed? It is formed when an elite individual who is skilled, very rich or powerful, decides to take over a government. In democracy, it can form when people decide to trust someone else. It can also occur when there's a crisis. The major ways oligarchies serve power because of incompetent leaders. What is the pros and cons of oligarchies? People can always assume oligarchies are bad, but there are still some good aspects to it. Also, people in power who knows what they are doing, or competent individuals right for the job. It encourages creative endeavors and takes conservative approach. But they tend to skew policies to benefit themselves, which result in income equality, while they can increase their wealth and consolidate their power. This can refer to a few countries could relate to, like Russia, which can be considered an oligarchy until 1991. And communist parties in China can be considered oligarchies. So, how is it?
And then
et Filii et Spiritus Sancti.
A theocracy is a form of government in which priests or religious leaders rule in the name of a deity or deities. Theocracy is a combination of religion and government. Who holds power in a theocracy? Political authority is held by religious leaders and is passed to the following set of religious leaders. Their authority is based on the religion of their citizens. Many nations and people groups throughout history have existed under a theocratic government, including many early civilizations. For example, ancient Egypt was a theocracy in which the pharaoh was believed to be the offspring of the sun god Ra. In Japan, the emperor was revered as the offspring of the sun goddess. Israel and China were all once theocracies as well. Only a few theocracies exist today. One of the best examples of a modern-day theocracy is Iran, wherein the state's legal system is based on a religious law. Vatican City is another modern-day example of a theocracy, even though they defined it as an absolute monarchy. The Pope is the supreme leader. The laws of Vatican City address not only the affairs of the intertwined Vatican City or Holy See, sovereign state, but also the canon law of the Catholic Church. Is the government authority limited? Do the citizens have rights? Theocratic rulers have very few limits on their power because they are governed by divine authority, but in some theocratic countries, religious rulers hold absolute power. In Vatican City, the Pope has papal supremacy wherein it is the doctrine of the Catholic Church that the Pope holds absolute, supreme, and universal power over the entire Church, which he can exert at any time. Iran has many religious rulers, occupying the majority of the country's most powerful governmental positions, from the heads of the military to the court system. In fact, the Religious Guardian Council even has the power to veto law or ban political candidates. Although Iranian people have struggled toward democracy for over a century, for the last 40 years, the Iranian people have been subjugated by an oppressive theocracy called the Islamic Republic, with a religious supreme leader overseeing all aspects of Iranian life. Thus, the regime under the Islamic Republic prevents the citizens from the free exercise of belief and expression. Countries under the regime of theocracy depend on the religious rulers and their ideology. It may function as a dictatorship or even an absolute monarch. The ideology of theocracy is giving divine guidance to human intermediaries who manage the government's daily affairs. Thus, theocracy is defined as government via religious authority, and theocratic leaders are generally chosen by religious groups or scholars on the basis of their knowledge, allegiance, and commitment to the doctrine of the reigning religion.
After we watched the very informative videos about political system and political regime, now let's turn to a brief reflection about this. The first question is, what is the importance of knowing political system and political regime in our lives? And the second, or the last one, is, what is the importance of knowing political system and political regime as a political science student? Every individual who has a capacity to understand those things should know what is the kind of political system or political regime the state they belong to has. As the citizen of the country they belong to, it is their obligation to participate in any activity of their government. And one thing they must do to do it properly is to know what is the kind of political system or political regime their government have. And as a political science student, it is very important to know it, and first among the reasons is that it is part of the lessons to finish. But aside from that, it is very important for political science student to know it because there's a large probability that it will help or we will really need it in the career that we will take in the future. And that's our presentation about political science and political regime, and we hope that you learn a lot of things about it. God bless you all and bye for now.